I think authenticity is really key, especially in the cover letter. If you can introduce yourself and call out a few key things, that's really helpful. It does not need to be super formal. Authenticity rocks. You don't need to match every single thing for a job. You don't need to be a perfect candidate to land a job.
Welcome to Security Cleared Jobs, Who's Hiring and How, the podcast for cleared professionals looking for new opportunities and career advice. We go behind the scenes with recruiters and hiring managers from leading cleared employers to uncover the information you need to make a smart career move. Get ready for insights from this week's guest and your hosts, Kathleen Smith and Rachel Bozeman.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Security Cleared Jobs, Who's Hiring and How. I'm Kathleen, and we're just having so much fun back here in the green room before we even hit the record button that we may have a few giggles going on today. But anyway, I'm thrilled. We have another great guest today, but as always, I get to see my charming, my delightful, my most wonderful co-host, Rachel. How are you doing today?
I need a couple more introductions there, but fantastic. I'm doing so great and so excited to be here, and even more excited for you to introduce our guests so we can start talking and let everybody meet our guests. So Kathleen, don't make them wait. Who's here?
We have someone who I have been talking to on LinkedIn for a very, very long time. The poor guy has been hounded by me. So I am so excited that he has been able to squeeze us into his schedule. So we have Ryan Quakenbush, Human Resources Specialist at Rocket Communications. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. When you first messaged me on LinkedIn, I was equal parts excited, but also nervous. And now I'm just so thrilled to be here and ready to share about Rocket.
Awesome. Kick it off, Rachel.
All right. So Ryan, I'm going to ask you to spill some tea. Tell us a little bit about your career journey and how you ended up at Rocket Communication. I promise I won't say it like that every time.
So it's definitely a unique story. I actually grew up around the company. My mother is the founder and CEO. She started Rocket in the early 90s, and I actually never dreamed of joining. I thought it was a very fascinating area of work, which I'll get into later, but I was more interested in actually retail marketing. So in college, I actually studied retail studies and marketing and public relations. So that's what I went into in my early career. I started doing some contracting work for Rocket in 2018, and sort of organically grew into a role. I ended up really liking the team. So I started with marketing, PR, executive assistants, wearing all those hats. And I was asked to help with recruitment in about 2019 or 2020 and fell in love with it. So luckily, as the company grew and we created an HR team, I was able to join. So I became an HR assistant, and I've now become an HR specialist.
Awesome. So one thing you haven't shared with us is, what does Rocket Communications do in the cleared community?
Great question. So we are a user experience design company. So user experience design, that is sort of everything one experiences when using technology. So it's, the look of it, the interface, how you interact to make the technology work. So our founder and CEO, Michael Ann, she started her career at Apple, which if you use Apple products, they typically have a great interface, great user experience. So she wanted to take that to other companies. We have been in the space domain for 10 years. So we're really like experts in UX design for space. We worked with Space Command, which is now the US Space Force and its contractors. And UX design, it helps unlock technology. It makes it more accessible so you can really unlock its full potential. It's faster to learn, and you're just able to focus on the missions at hand and not just how to use the technology.
And I think that's really great because a lot of people don't understand that there is so much science into creating the user experience. I mean, a lot of us, some of us not, but a lot of us just grew up with technology. We grew up with having an interface, and it was always easy. But there was the dark ages of the first websites that came up, or the first app interface, and we all went, I can't use this. This is not helping me. So user interface is just a really, really great sort of path to help people integrate with their technology. But how did the name come about? I mean, you talked about you're supporting Space Force, Space Command. I mean, what's the story about the name behind Rocket Communications?
It's actually kind of a funny story. So Rocket Communications, we started as a small company in the Bay Area and had nothing to do with space. Michael Ann, founder and CEO, She has a very impressive collection of vintage space toys from the 50s and 60s. And so it's a very cool office space. But she just loved those toys so much, she kind of used that to inspire the brand and the name. And it became a self fulfilling prophecy. It wasn't until 2015 that we actually began working mostly in space. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Look at that. You got to love it. Those little Jetson figurines. And here you are today making technology happen. I love it. So tell us a little bit about, I know you're in the recruiting space over there. So what are the type of cleared roles that you're hiring for? And are there any type of specialties or areas of focus that you're really looking for that type of talent in?
I would say associate level to senior or above level UX designers and software developers. So we're looking for folks with a few years of professional experience. And as for clearance, we usually look for secret clearance or above. So sometimes top secret or TS SCI. We love hiring more junior folks, but currently with our project sizes, we have smaller teams. So when we bring on junior folks, we usually want a larger team so we can support mentorship and growth. So right now we are looking for more senior designers and developers.
Wonderful. So you know what I'm going to ask you next. You know it's coming. Where are these positions located?
So Colorado is definitely big for space. That's a key area we look at, especially the Denver area. Some roles are more on site, and I know we'll go into those details later. But for some roles, we do actually have only maybe monthly or quarterly on-site requirements. So that expands our geographical area. We've been able to hire folks in other states near Colorado.
Fantastic. And you kind of touched on this. So are these hybrid? Are they on site? Are they in outer space? Tell us more, Ron.
They are, I wish they were in space. That'd be pretty cool. They're mostly hybrid. Some can have fairly frequent on-site work, weekly. But when possible, we want the roles to be mostly remote. And that's actually doable because, especially those front-end interfaces we work on, we can do a lot of work using dummy data, not the classified data. So I would say they're mostly hybrid. And like I said, up to weekly on-site work, but there's a chance it could be monthly on-site or quarterly.
I really want to see that job posting for someone to work in outer space.
Kathleen, it'll be out of this world.
It'll be out of this world, And then you have to be able to say, live long and prosper and do all of that. So anyway, oh, yes, we're all doing the Vulcan live long and prosper. Yes. Now, can you do it with both hands? Anyway, so now we're talking about really fun things. So let's talk a little bit about your company culture. I mean, it really can make or break the kind of career you have, the day-to-day job. When our audience is looking at a new employer, company culture is something that we always recommend people really dive into. So tell us a little bit more about, Rocket's culture, what it's like to work there, how you would describe it. Does your mom allow us to play with the toys?
Yes, that is definitely encouraged. We've actually sent people little tin robots in the past and toy rockets. So we're a fun culture. It's actually my favorite part of working at Rocket. We're a small team. We're just over 40 people, and it's very open, friendly, supportive. I think it's cool that everyone knows everyone. No one's just a faceless, nameless person. When I need help with IT, I talk to Jesse. And it's a good work-life balance. There's a lot of mutual respect for folks. A lot of us work remotely or hybrid, so we're not seeing each other every day face to face, but we all trust each other to do good work and balance our schedules properly. So one really cool way I've seen that reflected is folks will sometimes put in their calendar, I'm going to pick up my kids at school at this time every day, and that's been fine. Even though we're remote, I would say for our cleared jobs, many of those are in Colorado. So there actually are opportunities to meet up. Just yesterday, actually, the whole team met up and did a museum trip after work. So I thought that was pretty cool. We're a naturally curious bunch, especially about technology. So the team really likes collaborating and solving complex problems together, in space. Not in space physically.
I was going to say, when is that outing? Sign me up. That sounds fantastic.
I'm just envisioning you doing Twister or something like that in space.
Team building in space.
That might be a safety hazard. Can you imagine? You'd have to sign a release for that one for sure. Well, wonderful. Well, now to get us back on Earth and get a little more grounded here, I know that you do use a structured interview in your hiring process to make those important decisions. So can you break down for our listeners what that would look like if they were interviewing with you? Is there anything particular they should expect, and what would help them stand apart in that structured interviewing process?
That's a great question. So a structured interview process, they use predefined sets of questions during the interviews. That helps keep things consistent for candidates and, more fair, and it helps reduce possible bias. So you can know coming into an interview at Rocket that we'll be asking you questions to learn more about your competencies and your experience. We won't be throwing you super weird questions or anything like that. To best prepare yourself for interviewing at Rocket, understand the role and see if there's any key requirements that you match and be able to speak to those. I know it's simple advice, but it really does help to be able to speak to things that are in the job posting. Our job postings are also, I write those with the hiring managers. So they're very accurate. We really are up to date on what competencies and skills we need for each role we post. And our interviews are mostly, if not fully, remote. So the first will be a phone call with me, and from there, Zoom video interviews with hiring managers and teammates.
Awesome. Yeah, it's funny because for a while there we weren't hearing a lot about video interviews or virtual interviews, and that's all we've been hearing lately. So I'm really glad that we're coming back to that because it is something that is very integral in all hiring processes, is that there is some component about the virtual interview, and we do have several tip sheets out there about it. I actually wrote a few newsletter articles about it, so thanks for mentioning that. So, what I love, and I know that Rachel loves this too, is, perks and benefits that people put together in their packages. And I understand that you have some very super thoughtful perks there at Rocket Communications. You offer a remote stipend and a remote work allowance. Can you explain a little bit more about how those work?
Sure. Everyone at Rocket has some remote work, even for those hybrid roles. Ideally, most of it could be remotely done from home. So, to help make sure that everyone's set up to succeed with their home offices, upon hiring, we give everyone a $1,000 stipend. So, in your first paycheck, that's an extra $1,000. Obviously, we send everyone a MacBook to work with and an external hard drive. But if you don't already have, say, an external keyboard or extra monitors, maybe you want a nice ergonomic chair, that can help you get those things set up. And to help support month-to-month expenses, we also have $150 a month that we give as a remote work allowance. We've seen that really helps people be as comfortable and successful as possible in their home offices.
Absolutely. Just one of those nice little perks to make it even better. Even though you're not working in the same office, you can take care of those needs because they do add up. We forget that sometimes remotely, whether it's internet or whether it's additional expenses and utilities or having to, I don't know, grocery shop and have food at your house. All of those can add up. So it's nice to have that little extra something. So very, very thoughtful. I would definitely agree. That's a great perk. So I'm going to go back in time just a little bit, Ron. So we talked about it a little bit, but I'm sorry, it's the recruiter in me, and I just can't stop talking about interviews. I know I'm just sitting so close because I just can't wait to talk more about interviews. But you talked a little bit about the structured interviews and ways that folks can be successful in there. But I want to dig a little bit deeper because it can be so intimidating. People don't necessarily love the thought of interviewing. So, is there something in particular that you have seen folks do, or maybe recommendations you've made as you've kind of been consultative to candidates? Are there things that they can do to make them better or more successful in that interview process?
I'd say preparation really actually helps with the interview. And I know, again, it could seem obvious you want to prepare for an interview, but do your homework on the company and see perhaps where, there's something that genuinely excites you about the work we do or cool connections to your past experiences. Being authentic and excited about the work we do and the work you could bring to Rocket, that excitement's infectious. So doing your homework about the company and where you'd fit into a role. I'd also say understanding the tools. Like I said, we do a phone call to start and then a video interview on Zoom. So if you're unfamiliar with Zoom, maybe doing some test runs first, just so you're not nervous about the technology, being ready to be on camera for those video interviews. I'd say also asking questions at the end of the interview is always nice. Try to come in with some questions prepared, things that you're genuinely curious about, maybe asking about the interviewer's experience at the company. That can help you learn more about Rocket because you're interviewing us as well.
Absolutely. It's got to be a two-way conversation. So maybe there's the other side of the coin. We talked about some of the things that could help them be successful, but maybe there's some things that you would say, maybe don't bring that up in an interview. Are there any, no, don't do that?
I think interviews, ideally they can just sound like a fun, friendly conversation, but do listen to the question and try to answer it. We have had some folks that I'm having such a good time talking to, but we'll go on a tangent. We don't actually get to the question at hand. And it could be a little uncomfortable to go, oh, I love talking about that, but let's go back to this question. So being comfortable and ready to chat, but also being able to concisely answer questions. We've actually had a few folks just not get on camera for video interviews. And that can throw us, especially because we're a remote consultancy. So the service we deliver to clients a lot of times has video call aspects. So we want to see that off the bat, having a video call with us that's similar to the work we do. So if we set a video interview, we'd love to see you on camera. No need to dress fancy though.
How would you recommend someone wrap up an interview? I mean, what are some of the key things that they do? Because I know a lot of people, they'll just get off the phone or they'll just get off the interview and okay, no, there's some things that you need to do to wrap up that interview. What have you seen work?
I've seen folks prompt and ask about the next steps. And I think that's great because it shows you're excited. You're also wanting to be informed. Hopefully an interviewer will actually help wrap up an interview and proactively explain next steps and ask if you have any questions. But if they're not, if it's wrapping up, definitely feel free to ask, so what look forward to next? Or when should I expect to hear back? What's next interview format going to be like? That's totally fine to do. So I think asking questions and making sure you understand, what's coming next. If you have any questions about the role or the company from things you discussed, the end of the interview is a perfect time to do that. I'd also say pay attention to the time, especially if the interview's ending. Maybe check in and make sure, does anyone have a hard stop? That can seem really thoughtful. And that's a nice detail that I think people notice, that thoughtfulness.
Awesome. So I understand you have a cautionary tale to tell our audience. We've touched on AI a lot, and I know a lot of people see it as a big tool and something that can be really useful. But I really feel those of us in the Cleared community need to take a few more cautionary steps with this. So can you share what happened with your cautionary tale about AI and what others should keep in the lookout for?
Yes, this actually just happened the other week, so it's fresh in my mind. I go through applicants to Rocket, and we have some open jobs right now. No joke, 3 applicants back to back all had almost the same cover letter. It started with, my name is X, I'm writing to apply for the Y job. With over so-and-so number of years of experience in UX design. I'm eager to bring my design expertise to the team. And it was from there, a lot of fluff, fancy words, but it didn't actually tell me anything about them I didn't already see from their resume. I know there's a lot of templates out there, so it could have just been a copy-pasted template, could be AI, but it was wordy enough that I thought either this is AI or perhaps you're not concisely sharing more about yourself or introducing yourself. So AI is a tool to help write things, but it shouldn't be a replacement. I think authenticity is really key, especially in a cover letter. It doesn't need to be long or fancy, but if you can introduce yourself and call out a few key things, I think that's really helpful. It does not need to be super formal.
I really have a big question in the back of my mind that and again, folks, this is just Kathleen's thoughts. If you have an AI generated resume for a cleared job, does that count as lying on your resume if they are things you didn't really do?
Oh, for sure. Especially if there's things you didn't do, that does you a disservice too, because we might ask about it and throw you off in an interview. Authenticity rocks. You don't need to match every single thing for a job, but it should be definitely a truthful resume. Actually, I was speaking with some of our design leaders the other day about hiring. We've come across some AI portfolios, either AI or pulled from the internet. There was one that we actually recognized photos from a stock photo website. They were trying to pass it off as their own designs. So in that case, when we get to the case study part of an interview, if they'd made it that far and we're asking about your process, that'd probably be very stressful for you. So just be honest in your resume and your portfolio. It doesn't need to be perfect. You don't need to be a perfect candidate to land a job.
Especially UX, you think of UX, it is about that user experience. Recruiters are users, right? And so if you're giving us a lot of fluff and stuff and all of the things, and you're not just telling us what we need to know, epic fail UXer. Just tell us what we need to know and make it simple for that end user. So think with the end user in mind. So Ryan, we've had a great conversation. I've had a great conversation with you. I know Kathleen has had a great conversation, and I know our listeners have loved listening to you in here as well. So how in the heck can they get in touch with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find. I have a unique name, I think. So you can find me there. And the best way to get in touch about a job is to apply for it through our website. I'm very involved in recruiting. I'm sure I'll see your application if you apply. And if you have questions about a job, you can always reply to the confirmation email you get and get in touch with me.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us from the Bay Area. And we just loved our conversation with you.
Same. It was so fun talking with you, Kathleen and Rachel. I enjoyed my time here.
Great. Gosh, that was so great talking with Ryan. It was really refreshing. And I really loved, sorry, I'm going to steal it. I really loved his story about using AI for your cover letter and or your resume. Remember, it's a tool. It is not a replacement. How about you, Rachel? What did you find interesting about the conversation?
Well, the good news is there were so many nuggets of goodness in there. I'm okay that you took that one first, Kathleen, because I loved his advice to the interviewers about being authentic, which I think definitely ties in with the AI reference there. It's all about being your best self. If you know something, own it. If you don't, own that too. Be authentic in how you present yourself. Make sure you're on camera. Make sure you come prepared for the interview. All great advice. So you know what, friends? Get out there and smash that follow button. Drop us a 5-star review and send this episode to someone who needs to hear it. That was a lot of commands, but we thank you and we appreciate you. And until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Live long and prosper.
Was that amazing? We were ambidextrous. Everyone could do it with both hands, which is pretty impressive, if I do say so myself.
But when I was growing up, we all did this. Now you do it and people think you're, something's wrong with your finger.
I know, they're like, what are you doing? What are you throwing up for?